My guest today is Katy Faust, and she wrote a magnificent piece in First Things, and the title of it is The End of Natural Parenthood, and Katy is the founder and president of the children's rights nonprofit group, Them Before Us. Welcome, Katy.
Hey, great to be with you guys today. Thanks for having me.
Oh, this was an excellent article, Katy. I'm going to jump right in. So tell us how Obergefell versus Hodges redefined parenthood. We think of it redefining marriage. You talk about it redefining parenthood.
Well, this is the absolute obvious conclusion of the redefinition of marriage. What we have seen in all the other countries throughout the world, there's 38 so far that have redefined marriage, that have adopted gay marriage. All of them at some point will then redefine the family because marriage laws are totally connected to parenthood laws. So this was inevitable. And the short answer is when you make husbands and wives optional in marriage, mothers and fathers must become optional in parenthood. Now, why is that? It's because, as Justice Kennedy said in his 2015 decision, same-sex couples need to be afforded the full constellation of benefits that heterosexual couples do. But one of those benefits is that they have children. The problem is that two men or two women can never both be biologically related to the child. So now the law has to accomplish what biology prohibits. They have to make two adults of the same sex parents of the child. And so the obvious way to do that is to downgrade the importance of biology in the parent-child relationship, not just for the children who are acquired by same-sex couples, but if you're legally going to have no distinction between the two pairings, then biology has to be less important in my relationship to my own children, my biological children. It has to be less important to everybody's relationship to their child. And so what that means is we have seen, and I just detailed like 8 or 9 cases in that First Things article of different areas of law that used to recognize the preeminence of the natural parent-child relationship and how it has been eroded or completely inverted in the name of gay equality.
Well, one of the things, Katy, I want you to just give us a little more insight into, because this is what I heard when Obergefell was going on. I heard, Christian people saying, well, it's not going to affect my marriage. It's not going to affect me if, gay couples can get married. But you talk about this really does affect or weaken the kind of the rights of children, and it does affect every you with your child. So can you give us a little more insight into that?
Yes. Like you can so I talk a little bit about how there's 2 legitimate ways to recognize an adult's claim to a baby. The first one is biological. Right. And this is something that has been observed throughout history in every culture. We've got centuries of common law tradition that came down like pre-colonial times to the United States to say, if you're the biological parent of the child, that child belongs to you. But then we also created another pathway, not based on biology, but based on justice, and that is adoption. That if adults went through a rigorous background and screening and vetting process, that they could then be seen as the legal, the parental authority over that adopted child. But both of those pathways felt discriminatory to same-sex couples. And so they've started to build new pathways where they can acquire children through contracts and then create them through reproductive technologies. But then the law has started to accommodate them by creating intent-based pathways. I intend to parent this child. I have a contract. And then the state, you have the power of the state enforcing that contract. So what that means is the state now has a greater duty to decide who is and is not a parent. So anytime the state gets to decide who is and is not a parent, it means they have greater authority to decide that you are or are not the parent of your own child. So we've got kind of 2 different systems working in terms of family recognition. The first one is the system of natural parenthood, with the exception of, adoption here and there. Right. But then we have a state-constructed family that has started to develop as well. This state-constructed family. Now, these 2 models of understandings of the family, the natural family or the state-constructed family, they don't coexist. One is going to win. And right now, in the name of marriage equality, the state-constructed family is eating up more and more pieces of the pie of family recognition. And so if the state-constructed model wins, that means biology will become a far less important factor when it comes to determining who is and is not a parent. And that means that very soon the state could decide that you are not the parent of your own child. This happened this already took place in Canada. When gay marriage was legalized in Canada in 2005, they immediately started to refer to all parents not as biological parents, but just legal parents. The state will decide whether or not you are the legal parent of your child. And so the answer to this question of how does my gay marriage affect you probably is in the worst way possible. Your gay marriage, this framework, this legal system of the new recognition of the family actually threatens your relationship to your own child. So this idea that this is just a private relationship between two people, consenting adults in the privacy of their bedroom, no. It has overhauled the entire legal system of how we think about the family.
Wow, yeah. And Katy, I want to just briefly be able to touch on, you said there are studies that have been done on children living with adults that they're not related to. And you mentioned things like mother hunger and father hunger. First of all, can you kind of tell us a little bit about like what studies are these? Where might people find them if they want to know more about this? And then what is this mother hunger, father hunger?
The studies actually are widely available, and they have been going on for decades. Now, if you are talking about what are the outcomes for children that are raised by same-sex couples, you're going to find lots of indigestion out there because there has been a spate, especially leading up to Obergefell, of poorly conducted studies that supposedly show that kids with two moms or two dads fare no different. But very interestingly, when you are studying other forms of family, it makes it very clear that biological parents advantage children in ways that unrelated adults do not. And that is an ironclad conclusion among sociologists. It is so obvious that we've actually given a name to this phenomenon that children who are raised by unrelated adults, specifically unrelated men, are at drastically higher risk of abuse and neglect. So you can actually Google this. It's called the Cinderella effect. And it's exactly what it sounds like. If a child is being raised by dad's girlfriend or dad's wife or mother's boyfriend or mother's new husband or mother's new wife or father's new husband, you're going to predictably see declining rates of child well-being and sometimes cases of abuse or neglect, or simply things like they're not going to spend as much money on food. They're not going to take the child to the doctor as often. They're not going to buckle their seatbelts as regularly. So this is a ironclad truth that biological parents advantage children. And obviously, in a same-sex headed household, there's always going to be one unrelated adult in that parent.
Yeah. Wow, Katy, there is so much here we could dig into. I might have to have you on the Virtuous Life so we have a full hour to talk about this. But thanks for being with us today and have a great weekend ahead.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.